Okay, so I think we are ready to start. Again, welcome, dear audience. So my name is Mariangela Pellegrini. I'm the program manager for the European Reference Network on Rare Hematological Disease, the ERN EuroBlonet. And it's my great pleasure to welcome you on behalf of the whole ERN to this session of the European EuroBlonet Thursday webinar. So before starting, some house rules and technical information. So as you are seeing, this session is recorded because we implement all our webinar in the e-learning platform and our educational YouTube channel too. So if you don't feel comfortable or at your ease with that, please put your camera off. And also be kindly informed that your microphone will be muted along all the presentation. But if you have, of course, any question, there is a specific Q&A session at the end of the presentation, and you will have the possibility both to write and address the question, writing them in the chat, or raising hands, and I will give you the floor, the microphone for speaking. As you may know, the Thursday webinar have a specific aim, so is to promote the interest on very innovative topics among health professionals for disseminate the cutting-edge advances in the field of the rare hematological disease. So today we are going to assist to a lecture on marginal zone lymphomas that will be provided by Professor Catherine Thieblemont, who is professor at hematology at the Paris University, chair of the lymphoma group at the Hôpital Saint-Louis in Paris, and head of hemato-oncology department, chair of the lymphoma group at the Hospital Saint-Louis, and head of hemato-oncology department in Paris. So, dear audience, please welcome with me the speaker of today's session, Professor Catherine Thieblemont. Please, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mariangela, for the very nice introduction. We will speak today about a very hot topic. It's just the New England Journal of Medicine has just published today a review on marginal zone lymphoma by Davide Rossi, Francesco Bertoni, and Email Zucker. So we'll speak about the treatment option in marginal zone lymphomas. I hope that you see my screen. This is my disclosures. And we will speak about the many phases of marginal zone lymphoma in terms of presentation, how we diagnose, stage, and what are the prognostic scores in marginal zone lymphomas, the first line therapies, localized therapies or systemic therapies. And one of the questions that is asked very often is, do we should add a maintenance therapy in marginal zone lymphoma after a first-line induction? And then we will speak also about the treatment strategies in relapse and refractory marginal zone lymphoma with the future perspectives. So, in fact, there is at least 4 diseases that have been described in the last WHO classification, with the extranodal marginal zone lymphoma that will involve the mucosal site or the non-mucosal site, and that represent 70% of the marginal zone lymphoma. And here you can see that the most frequent localization are the gastric mold lymphoma associated with, in most of the case, with Helicobacter pylori, the lung infiltration and the eyes, but you may have also the skin infiltration, which is very frequent. Then you have the nodal involvement with the nodal marginal zone lymphoma occurring in 10% of the non-Hodgkin's the marginal zone lymphoma, the splenic marginal zone lymphoma that will represent 20% of the patients and that will involve mainly the spleen, but the blood and the bone marrow may be involved. And then the more recent presentation described in the WHO classification is the leukemic phase called the clonal B lymphocytosis from the marginal zone. That represent 5% of the marginal zone lymphomas, and then we think that it will evolve to the splenic marginal zone lymphoma presentation. So mostly the patients with extranodal marginal zone lymphoma will present a localized disease, localized at the site involved. And then the other side, the splenic, the nodal, and the leukemic infiltration and presentation will present with disseminated disease. So very different disease. And here the pathogenesis have been described, as I said, in the last review published today in the New England Journal of Medicine, associating the predisposing condition to marginal zone lymphoma. And we know that there are infectious agents or diseases that have been associated with the occurrence of marginal zone lymphoma, such as Helicobacter pylori with the stomach, Chlamydia psittaci with the ocular annexa, Acrombacter xyloccidans in the lung, Campylobacter jejuni in the intestine, and Borrelia burgdorferi in the skin, hepatitis C virus with the nodal or the splenic marginal zone lymphoma. And this has a really strong impact for the therapeutic strategies, because you may propose antibiotics or antiviral therapeutics to treat the lymphoma. And then you have also autoimmune disease, such as Sjögren syndrome for the lacrimal gland in marginal zone lymphoma, the lymphocytic interstitial pneumonia, and the Sjögren syndrome have been associated with the marginal zone lymphoma of the salivary gland, and the Hashimoto thyroid with the mold lymphoma from the thyroid. We know that some hit in terms of mutations have been associated, the hit of some genes have been associated with the deregulation of the lymphocyte that may evolve to the marginal zone lymphoma, occurring in the Notch pathway, but also in the NF-kappa B pathways, the alternative of or the regular pathway to activate the NF-kappa B complex. In terms of diagnosis, the diagnosis is based on the biopsy from the external site involved or the nodal site involved. And for the splenic and the leukemic phase, you may have the diagnosis based on the evaluation of the leukemic phase, and the markers in terms of pathological markers are the same, are common between these three entities, extranodal, splenic or leukemic, and the nodal marginal zone lymphoma. They are B-cell antigens, so positive for CD19, CD20, CD22. Always BCL2 is expressed. Cyclin D1 is negative, and then you have the negativity of these markers. So typically, what is mandatory to diagnose marginal zone lymphoma, you must have the expression of CD20. CD5 may be negative, as well as CD10 and cyclin D1. And then you may also evaluate the expression of CD23, the expression of the hemoglobin D, and MYD88 should be negative. Also, in this same review, it has been described the different gene mutations occurring in the different small B-cell neoplasia that may help the diagnosis of splenic marginal zone lymphoma, nodal marginal zone lymphoma, and extranodal. And you can see here that KLF2 and NOTCH2 mutations are very present in about 30 to 40% of the patients with splenic and nodal marginal zone lymphoma. And then here you have the expression of some proteins that may help for the diagnosis of splenic, nodal, and extranodal marginal zone lymphoma. In routine practice, what is mandatory to help to stage the patients will be all these blood tests with the full blood, the flow cytometry, the LGH level, the beta-2 microglobulin, the biochemical studies, the HIV, HCV, and HBV serologies, and then the CT scan evaluating the extension of the disease. Bone marrow is recommended only if you would like to evaluate the extension of the disease, but has no prognostic value in case of stage 1 multiple lymphoma. The PET scan may be useful when you again would like to stage the patients when you will choose a local treatment, or if you suspect a high-grade transformation. And then regarding the gastric extranodal marginal zone lymphoma, you should evaluate the patients very carefully with an endoscopy, multiple biopsy, and Helicobacter pylori must be evaluated either with the immunochemistry at the biopsy site of the gastric site of the lymphoma, and then if the immunochemistry is negative, you should either test the serology or the breast test or the stools antigen. All these tools maybe have the same value in terms of specificity or sensitivity. We described several prognostic scores specific to the marginal zone lymphoma. The MOLT IPI is based on the age with a threshold at 70, it's not 60. The stage 3 or 4, so this means stage, and then the high level of LDH. Then for the splenic marginal zone lymphoma, you have several scores published several years ago, either by the GELTAMO based on the hemoglobin, platelets, LDH level, or the infiltration of the extrahilar lymph node, and the Italian score with the hemoglobin, a low level of albumin and high level of LDH. For the nodal marginal zone lymphoma, you have no specific prognostic index, but the FLIPI should guide your treatment strategy. Then in terms of therapies, first, the first line. So we know that this is a very indolent B-cell lymphoma that may be asymptomatic for several years, and you may watch and wait the patients, and the question to ask is when to start the treatment and what do you want to choose, local or systemic therapies. Then the criteria to start or to adapt the treatment are not precisely defined. So we may recommend to start in the extranodal marginal zone lymphoma when the patient is symptomatic, For the splenic marginal zone lymphoma, you will start the treatment when you have a symptomatic splenomegaly or when you have cytopenias that can appear either with anemia or thrombocytopenia. And again, the threshold is not clearly defined, but what is clear is that the hyperlymphocytosis is not a criteria to start the treatment. Then you may propose a treatment, a specific treatment when you have immune disorders such as immune anemia or immune thrombocytopenia. For sure, when you have a nodal disease, elevated LDH or B symptoms, you may ask if the disease is transformed to a high-grade lymphoma. And then for the nodal marginal zone lymphoma, you may apply the same criteria than the follicular lymphoma, so based on the high tumor burden criteria, the GELF criteria. So the local therapy in extranodal marginal zone lymphoma will be either surgery or localized radiotherapy when you have ocular or cutaneous marginal zone lymphoma infiltration. And then for the splenic, now splenectomy may be proposed, but I would suggest to discuss this strategy only when you have a massive splenomegaly. And for the nodal marginal zone lymphoma, you may propose a localized radiotherapy only when you have a localized nodal infiltration, which is very rare in the nodal marginal zone lymphoma, which is mostly disseminated disease. Then when you have a dependency to microorganism, you may treat the microorganism, either Helicobacter pylori or hepatitis C virus, with adapted therapies to decrease and to treat the lymphoma. Particularly, this gastric mold lymphoma may appear as ulcer, which is associated with anemia when you have hemorrhagia. Then pseudogastritis. Here you can see a typical image of pseudogastritis or nodular infiltration of the gastric wall. This represents 30%, 35% of extranodal marginal zone lymphoma. You should check of the dependency to Helicobacter pylori, which is less frequent in Europe or in United States. You may propose when this mold lymphoma is independent to Helicobacter pylori, either radiotherapy with 24 grays, or if disseminated disease, you may propose immunochemotherapy. We will see that later. Then the best option will be chosen after a staging of the patients. Then what may be proposed as a systemic therapy in marginal zone lymphoma in first line. In extranodal marginal zone lymphoma, you may choose either archlorambucil or arbanamustine. Archlorambucil have been proved as the best therapy over rituximab alone or chlorambucil alone in a phase 3 trial. I will detail that later. And then arbanamustine have been also published, and I will also present the data. Then for the splenic marginal zone lymphoma, we know that the standard treatment for this lymphoma when a systemic therapy is proposed is a 6-weekly infusion of rituximab and then a maintenance for 1 or 2 years based on the publication from our Greek colleague. And then for the nodal marginal zone lymphoma, the most standard treatment is the arbanamustine, 6 cycles of treatment. So coming back for the extranodal marginal zone lymphoma, in terms of systemic therapy, first line, archlorambucil give better result than rituximab alone or chlorambucil in blue. The 5-year PFS is 62%. Here, you can see here the excellent progression-free survival. This is from the updated trial, the ALG-19, published by Emil Zucca in 2017. Then the arbanamustine is very efficient, and what is very important is that you may stop the treatment at 4 cycles when you obtain a complete response after 3 cycles, and this will occur in 75% of the patients with extranodal marginal zone lymphoma, and you can see the 7-year PFS at 93%, which is really incredible in terms of results. So just to summarize this systemic therapy with the result. So chlorambucil, the association will give 85% of overall response rate, complete response rate almost 80% of the patients, and here the 5-year PFS, 60% of the patients, and a good overall survival. And the arbanamustine give better result, and you may stop the treatment after 4 cycles. Then for the splenic marginal zone lymphoma, rituximab with 1 or 2 years of maintenance, and you may increase the 5-year PFS when you give maintenance therapy. Then for the nodal marginal zone lymphoma, arbanamustine is recommended, R-CHOP only if you have a histological transformation. One of the very frequent question asked in marginal zone lymphoma in first line is what is the interest of the maintenance therapy? We don't know yet, but however, we know that the patients that will relapse during the first 2 years from the first starting treatment will have a worse PFS than the patients that will relapse after 2 years. This has been published in 2 different series by Annaretta Conconi or Stefano Luminari. And then we have these very interesting clinical trials in extranodal marginal zone lymphoma, where chlorambucil plus associated with rituximab maintenance for 2 years, we have seen that the complete response rate after inductions, after 1 year of maintenance, or after 2 years of maintenance will increase from 58% to 80% of the patients. Then here in another clinical trials with arbanamustine and R maintenance for 2 years in splenic and nodal marginal zone lymphoma, not extranodal. Here in the patients with R maintenance, the PFS was not reached against the compared to the patients without maintenance. Then here you can see the difference in terms of survival in this series of only splenic marginal zone lymphoma treated with rituximab alone without chemotherapy. With maintenance, you may see a very significant difference in terms of progression-free survival at 5 years. This has been published recently by Christina Kalpadakis. And lastly, I will finish with the relapse and refractory marginal zone lymphoma. What are the therapeutic strategies and the future perspective? We know that for the patients, asymptomatic patients, we may only observe the patients. Then for the localized infiltration, you may propose radiotherapy. And for the disseminated disease, you may either treat with chemotherapy, but we have new targeted agents that may be interesting. And then here you can see that we have BTK inhibitors that have been successful in this relapse and refractory marginal zone lymphoma with either ibrutinib that is approved by the FDA with this result published a few years ago by Ari Lanois in 2020. So 50% of patients will be in response. This is overall response rate. And then zanubrutinib is very interesting and have been presented at the last ASH meeting with an overall response rate at 74%. Then PI3 kinase inhibitors with copanlisib is interesting, but I think too toxic for this indolent disease with particularly colitis, which is very difficult to manage. And then BCL2 inhibitors with venetoclax. Lenalidomide, IMiD, may be interested, and it already approved when associated with rituximab based on several publications. Rituximab, of course, is approved in marginal zone lymphoma with alone this rate of overall response rate, so 45%. Everolimus is too toxic and is not efficient in marginal zone lymphoma. So we have seen some chemo-free association in relapsed and refractory marginal zone lymphoma published recently. The augment and the magnify with the association of lenalidomide in phase 3 trials with response rate, a complete response rate between 29 to 38% of the patients. We are running an association with ibrutinib, and the MSKCC is running a very interesting association with ibrutinib, rituximab, and lenalidomide only in marginal zone lymphoma setting. So I will end with this last slide with saying that there is no, I think, a few indications for autologous or allograft, and only retrospective data are available in the literature. Maybe we can propose when the patients present transform marginal zone lymphoma, transform disease in high-grade lymphoma. And then I will update also the data of CAR T cells in marginal zone lymphoma presented at the last ASH meeting with ZUMA-5, axi-cel, and here you can see a very interesting overall response rate, 83%, with 63% of complete response rate, and here the progression-free survival a little bit less efficient than in follicular lymphoma, but we have to wait for more follow-up and for more patients to be involved. Only 24 patients have been treated with axi-cel. Then in conclusion, I feel that it's very important to diagnose these patients very carefully and to stage to see the dissemination of the disease, and then to treat the patients in need of treatment, either with localized treatment or with disseminated systemic treatment, either bendamustine or chlorambucil or rituximab alone, with maintenance in splenic marginal zone lymphoma. Then R-CHOP will be really proposed only if you have a transformation. And then in relapse, this is still a unmet medical need, and we need new choices based on patient-specific profiling and specific entity clinical trials. I would like to thank this collaborative work realized inside the International Extended Lymphoma Study Group and also the International Splenic Lymphoma Study Group. And this was when we were able to meet all together, and here it was in Paris in 2019 or 2015. for the splenic group. Thank you very much. I will be happy to answer your question either by chat or directly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Thieblemont, for your comprehensive speech. And I also encourage the audience to take profit of this unique occasion of talking directly with an expert of such rare disease. So as said, you can both write in the chat or unmuting yourself and take the floor.
So if you have any experience to share of difficult cases with marginal zone lymphoma, either extranodal, splenic, or nodal marginal zone lymphoma, I will be happy to discuss with you. We know that, for example, in a splenic disease, you may either choose splenectomy or a more conservative treatment with rituximab alone. So I would like to see your opinion. Do you prefer to choose splenectomy when you have a splenic marginal zone lymphoma? So if yes, just chat yes in the chat, and then we will discuss this splenectomy. Which was the preferred treatment a few years ago?
Waiting for this input, and thank you for raising. So we received one question in the chat. What about eradication of HP in the treatment of gastric MZL?
Yeah. So first we will answer this question about Helicobacter pylori eradication. So it's very important to eradicate Helicobacter pylori when you have a clear infiltration infection of Helicobacter pylori. So no question, no doubt about this, and you may check for eradication with a breast test 1 month after the antibiotics treatment, and then check for with the gastroscopy 3 months, not at 1 month, but 3 months after the eradication, because we may have a complete response of the gastric lymphoma between 3 months and even more than 1 year. So you may really check for the gastric lymphoma regression and response after 3 months of the antibiotics. The question is when you have no clear association with Helicobacter infections, you may either check very carefully with the serology stool test, but I choose usually to eradicate and to propose antibiotics is only 7 days or 10 days of antibiotics treatment. So I check very carefully, and if I have the still doubt about the negativity of Helicobacter pylori, I treat the patients. But we know that if you have a really true negative Helicobacter pylori, no infection in gastric mild lymphoma, you will not treat the lymphoma if you have no association, for sure. What about when you have, if you don't have isolation of Helicobacter pylori in gastric? So we just answer this question. I usually eradicate anyway, and I give the antibiotics. So I have only one yes to my question regarding splenectomy. You choose splenectomy to treat splenic marginal zone lymphoma. We may discuss that now. We choose to treat with splenectomy only when you have a massive splenomegaly. Usually I try to have now a conservative approach to treat the patients with rituximab alone, and then we know that we may propose new targeted agents in clinical trials, for example. But I understand that you may choose splenectomy. The splenectomy, the median treatment-free survival after splenectomy is around 7 years, meaning that you may have to treat your patients after 7 years after the splenectomy when you treat with the splenectomy.
Thank you. So we'll see if a new question arrives or not.
What about ocular marginal lymphoma? Do you treat with radiotherapy? We know that radiation therapy, even with low dose, may be associated with secondary effect, such as cataract. So do you prefer to choose localized treatment with radiotherapy or more systemic treatment based on rituximab, either alone or with chemotherapy, either chlorambucil or bendamustine? So please answer the question. So radiotherapy for ocular marginal zone lymphoma. Yes or no? No radiotherapy, rituximab and antibiotics. So antibiotics have been proposed based on doxycycline by the team from Milan, Andres Ferreri. However, it has been carefully proposed to give antibiotics only in clinical trials. Antibiotics should be given and evaluate still in this disease. So the association with Chlamydia psittaci has been proven only in a certain area, such as the north of Italy, but not in other countries. So I don't know, Xavier, where are you from? Could you tell us if you are located in Italy or in Belgium? Okay. And did you find in your area the association with Chlamydia psittaci? I remind that this bacteria come from the stool from the birds, particularly the canary. This was the first publication from Andres Ferreri. Complete remission after 3 months of doxycycline without rituximab, Xavier? Did you give rituximab in the same time? Yes, with. Okay. So you may say that as rituximab is efficient for marginal zone lymphoma, ocular marginal zone lymphoma, you cannot, you may discuss the efficiency of the doxycycline. It has been discussed by Andres Ferreri that the doxycycline has also an immunosuppressive mechanisms of action in this lymphoma. So this is a very interesting way and approach for this lymphoma.
I can see another question.
Yeah. This is a really good question. Rituximab maintenance in splenic marginal zone lymphoma during COVID pandemic. We have unfortunately stopped some patients that were treated with maintenance, either because the patients were afraid about having rituximab maintenance, or because they were infected by COVID-19. But this is a really difficult situation, not only in splenic marginal zone lymphoma, but also in other situations such as follicular lymphoma or mantle cell lymphoma, where we have the same policy for maintenance therapy with rituximab. Good question. So the next question is, do you know if there is any articles appearance about rituximab intravitrea in ocular marginal lymphoma? Yes, there are some, one experience published by the Italian, actually by Annarita Conconi. One very difficult situation is also the meningeal infiltration, so the CNS, but inside the meningeal. It has been also, there is few case report with rituximab given with very low dose in the meningeal sites. I prefer to choose rituximab by the systemic way associated with methotrexate high dose. Or ibrutinib, actually, because we know that ibrutinib is going inside, is crossing the blood barrier. Okay, thank you very much. If I didn't give you my email address, but you can find it very easily in Google, and it's at aphp.fr. So you may ask the question also by email.
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you of giving such an availability. So I also echo Professor Thieblemont. So thank for the audience for being with us, for the great discussion. And most of all, thank to Professor Thieblemont for sharing with us your expertise. So I hope to see you in 2 weeks for the next webinar. And have a nice evening, everyone. Thank you very much again.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.